are you guys doing? Good
Good.
morning, good afternoon, and good evening, everyone. Thank you, Sunil, for having me today.
Sure.
My name is James Reyes. I'm the Vice President here with Aquatic Informatics. And I'm excited at the opportunity to share with you a few things today. So one, I'm going to share with you a bit about our company, Aquatic Informatics, who we are, what we do, what our vision is as an organization. Number two, I'm going to spend most of the time really talking about our perspective and our experience on how we see organizations approach data management, and more importantly, how they approach turning that data into knowledge and that journey. And then finally, I'm going to share with you some customer stories and then some high-level examples on how our customers are using technology along that journey. Okay, so who is Aquatic Informatics and what do we do? We're a mission-driven software company. We're headquartered here in Vancouver, British Columbia. We have offices in Australia and Denver as well. And at the end of the day, we build software that helps utilities, municipalities, federal agencies, state-level organizations improve water data integrity, streamline their regulatory compliance, and at the end of the day, strengthen resilience. We've worked with over 1,000 customers in over 60 countries. And through our solutions, we help customers track, analyze, and share hundreds of millions of water data measurements and sample results across multiple test locations. There's a number of stats here on the slide that I'm presenting, but the one that we're most proud of here is on the top right, which is our Certified B Corporation. I don't know if any of you have heard of Certified B Corp, but we've been a Certified B Corp since 2014. The certification of B Corp is done by B Labs, which is a nonprofit organization, and they recognize companies that not only are best in the world, but are best for the world. And Certified B Corps essentially use the power of business to solve social, environmental problems, at the same time meeting the highest standards of social and environmental performance, transparency, and accountability, really to balance profit and purpose. And I spent time talking about this because it's really important when it comes to what our vision is as an organization. And it's really simple. At the end of the day, connect all water data, predict water problems, and more importantly, protect life. And we do this through a portfolio of solutions that address water data management challenges across the entire water cycle. So source water, stormwater, potable water, wastewater, fats, oil, and grease, and cross connection. And given our experience having worked with thousands of organizations, what I want to share with you today are really the 4 key milestones that we have observed in our experience that customers strive for in their efforts and that data management journey that Hardeep was talking about. So let's jump in. Really the first step here is embarking on that data consolidation initiatives. As Hardeep mentioned, before insights can take place, before data analysis can take place, organizations are first centralizing all that data so that they're able to make it scalable. What we found here is that the key challenge is that department silos and data silos exist in the way we're organized today. IT, users, procurement, everybody's entrenched in a set of different solutions. Each group has their own fears, each group has their own priorities, each group has their own preferences that prevent the greater good of that data consolidation. Organizations that have been successful in this foundational milestone really begins with what I'm calling innovative procurement. We're starting to see more and more of this. If you think about traditionally when data management systems are being purchased and acquired, there's a linear path to that, where the business comes up with the requirements, IT signs off, legal signs off, purchasing signs off. But we're starting to see more and more an organizational shift in the companies that are really successful here, where the innovative procurement model is taking place. And what I mean by that is, instead of that linear transition to acquiring technology, the stakeholders are ultimately aligned at the beginning. So, IT and legal and purchasing don't actually come at the end; they come at the very beginning, in full parallel with the rest of the business. And that's really, really important. That collaboration at this foundational stage really sets the context for this big initiative. So the next milestone in the next stage, now that feels like you've climbed a hill, you've gotten approval, you've gotten budget, you've selected a data management platform. As powerful as step one is, the next step becomes actually working on the data analysis. And again, a common mistake that we see here is that organizations jump in and start to analyze all the data, and paralysis sets in. Hardeep, I think, mentioned a stat there. Given the proliferation of IoT, the number of sensors that are in the natural environment, the data that's coming into our organizations can quickly become a daunting challenge and is a struggle for where to start. Again, in working with a number of organizations, the area of success and what we've seen is companies really focus on their organizational goals and prioritize that, as opposed to just looking at the data. So instead of getting mired in the data, they're really challenging their ideas and asking why and so what type of questions. So that is really the key thing in step two, focusing on the goals and the outcomes and the problems you're looking to solve, not the data. Then the third milestone in this pyramid here comes around with internal data sharing. So as I talked about, building on that collaboration with the key stakeholders in step one, that collaboration is critical to maintain it past the initial acquisition and initial process and purchase of technology. Without a purposeful leadership here, typically walls and the silos often go up again and hinder the optimal information sharing. And really here, what we've seen to be successful here is really being purposeful around what those wins are and actually making business case to invest in that internal data sharing. Having leadership sponsor specific initiatives where you're not focused on all the disparate data sets. Again, it's really focusing on specific projects. And while this takes an investment of time, energy, and budget to evaluate, it's really important at this stage to build that business case to support that initial investment in technology. And the fourth milestone, and this is where it's really interesting, is the external data sharing. So how do you start to empower all the stakeholders outside of the organizations that you're in to leverage that data that you're now collecting and organizing in really great manner? Again, at this stage, the key challenge that we've seen organizations face is really that fear of making a mistake or fear of missing the mark within their stakeholders. But what we've found is that by involving the external stakeholders, whether they're partner agencies, citizens or constituents, really involving them, or regulators, involving them in the start, having them invested in the process will remove any of the fears while bolstering the likelihood of them supporting and promoting the efforts of your organization. So again, in summary here, really 4 key steps in terms of the journey that we've seen successful organizations take from data to knowledge. Data consolidation is step 1, and the acquisition of a platform to help manage that data. Purposeful data analysis, especially in the beginning of the project. Really, that's a transformative step. The third is leadership around the internal data sharing and being purposeful around that. And finally, the external knowledge sharing and embracing and bringing in the third parties. I'll shift to a couple of examples now in my last few minutes here. On a larger scale, one of the organizations we work with is the United States Geological Survey. 58 billion historical points, 150 years worth of data, over 600 measuring locations. As you can see, the scalability of some of our solutions are quite large. On a smaller scale, we work with the Wyoming State Engineering Office. For those of you that have been to Wyoming, interesting fact, 96% of their water is used for agriculture. So they've been collecting their data for a long time, but ever since they started using our platform, they're really able to answer a lot of those knowledge type questions. How much water is in the watershed? How much is being used? How much can be taken out or permitted? And are permit holders taking on too much for compliance enforcement? So that's just another example of taking that data and transforming it into knowledge and actionable insight that Hardeep had mentioned. Here's another real world example here where you're able to take that data that you're measuring. This is a screenshot here of our Aquarius platform. Real world example, this is a groundwater monitoring program results. And this is really around measuring and looking at compliance around saltwater intrusion. So what our platform is able to do is quickly visualize spatially to identify areas of concern. Specific data can be drilled down on the configurable charts, be created, compare multiple parameters or multiple locations for analysis or investigation. So again, it's one thing to collect data, it's another thing to provide context, so then you could action it. The map, like on the map here, the monitoring locations are color coded based on a specific parameter or state specific legend, and information appears there in the dialog box with a hover. And again, you're quickly able to see key information and details on threshold standards and exceedances. Another example of applying that knowledge to the data and context to the data is an example of water level in the network. So here, you're able to look at successfully in near real time water level data every minute. And that's the kind of the main signal there. However, stakeholders just looking at that, it's not super easy to see without the context. So adding the wristbands layered on there, like the blue, the yellow, the red, show the elevations of local roadways and plot overlays that really allow your stakeholders to interpret the data that's happening in the network. So this is an interactive display all in the cloud, allows users to zoom in and out and really be able to see where the potential flood risk on the roadways are. So again, I'll pause there. Really appreciate Sunil having me here. Again, going back to the importance of data management, it's really important to think about it as a journey where you really have to be critical and thoughtful about how you start and what the foundational metrics are. Again, one, recognizing that data management is critical and embarking on that right journey with the right team to select a solution. Two, being purposeful on your data analysis. Number three, being purposeful on how you proliferate that data sharing internally. And finally, the third party stakeholders and external data sharing. Thank you, Sunil.